Let's talk about a guy who decided to stick around at Notre Dame, and that's Braden Lenzy. And
Mhm.
I think things were always leaning towards him coming back, but I hadn't really heard anything, significant. And he didn't waste any time, letting everybody know that he was coming back to Notre Dame for his 5th year, which I think is really, really exciting because for me, his skill set, I think, bodes very, very well in a Tyler Buchner run offense. And that excites me a lot. Whether you're talking about jets, you're talking about reverses, you're talking about some wide receiver screens, things of that nature. I really like Braden Lenzy's skill set to do a lot of that, and I think Tyler Buchner's skill set will ask receivers to do a lot of those things, right? And I think that Braden Lenzy could be a guy that could be very exciting. I think as far as his decision to go pro or come back, I think that part it was easy from a technical wide receiver standpoint. He's not an NFL wide receiver right now. Could he develop into one? Maybe. But I think he could be really good on this Notre Dame team next year as a 5th year, especially, we're talking about the depth chart at wide receiver for Notre Dame. That obviously comes into play. I don't think he was ready for the NFL. I think he probably goes undrafted if he declares. Personally, you're the expert. I will defer to you on that one. But at the same time, I think he made the right decision. I'm excited about the decision because I could have seen him leaving because there was some frustration, I think, for Braden Lenzy at times. And I totally understand that. But him coming back makes this wide receiver room that much stronger. So I'm excited about it from a X's and O's standpoint, like I had mentioned, but from a fan standpoint, I'm excited to see Zero again.
Yeah, and I think what you said, Vince, it's really, completely true, is that I think that his skill set really meshes into the offense that they're going to potentially run with a Tyler Buchner. And I think that he does a lot of those things, like you said. We've run some jets, some end arounds, thrown some screens, do all types of different things with him. And that's awesome, because he brings,
Right.
I think, an element that the rest of the receivers don't, because we're going to have like Deion Coles, he's kind of that big body guy. I love Lorenzo Styles, but he's more of like that short intermediate separator.
Sure.
He's kind of got that flexibility to him. We don't have a guy that's really like this type of explosive yak guy, and he's that guy that I think can do a lot of those things really well. What I'm really excited about him coming back is because I think that there is an extra layer. You mentioned technical, but even just from a ability to win vertically. Like there were a couple
Sure.
shots that were just missed. There was a drop down the field. I forget what game it was that was really bad, like hit him in the chest. And I'm just like, there is more there for a guy like Braden Lenzy. He is a next level athlete, in my opinion, because I think he's going to run very fast. I think he's going to test really well. His body type is obviously not to the Kevin Austin where like you can project him a ton playing outside, as much as he's more like a gadget Z receiver type that you're going to have to keep off the line of scrimmage a little bit so he doesn't have to work against press coverage. But I still think that he's a guy that is a very good athlete. I think that you saw glimpses of it. I think that there's a lot of cool things that you can do with him schematically in the offense. And I want to see him take that next level. Like I could see him taking his production up a huge notch next year because not only will there be more volume to eventually go around to him, but I think that there's just an added skill set that he can take it further. I think there's development that can still be had. So from a fan perspective, I agree. I'm excited to get him back because I think there's another layer from an NFL draft perspective. I'm also excited because I agree. He was not going to get drafted this year because the production is just not there. Maybe a late round flyer if he tests exceptionally well to the degree that I think he could. But I think that next year he could be a draftable prospect because I think that he has that type of skill set.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I would love to see, and we're going to get an opportunity to see what he can do under the tutelage of a different wide receiver coach. Right. Look, we know that, according to sources, that Dell's not coming back. And so whoever they get as the wide receiver coach, what does that do for Braden Lenzy? Because he's not a polished wide receiver, right? He needs technical skill work. That bottom line, right? And so what is that going to look like from a coaching standpoint? If they bring in somebody and they're like, okay, Braden, we know that you can outrun most of the people that you're going to be going up against, but let's work on your stem. Let's work on, the top ends of your routes. Let's work on your hands a little bit. Let's work on, finding the open zone. Let's work on breaking a tackle, things of that nature. I think it doesn't take that much coaching to enhance a lot of those things. And so an entire offseason, a spring, a fall camp, all of those different things with Braden Lenzy, I think we could potentially see his game go to another level. And I think that's really, really exciting because he was kind of I don't want to say he was a one-trick pony, but he was a speed receiver, right? I mean, he made some good plays, he moved the chains and did some things, but he's going to be the veteran, right? Him and Avery Davis, depending on, him coming back, and we'll talk about him in just a second, him coming back from his injury. Braden Lenzy's the leader in the clubhouse as far as from an age standpoint, right? So, guys are going to be looking at him a little bit differently now that Kevin Austin is gone, right? And so what does that mean for his game? And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And like I said, he just has a skill set that I think is a little absent, at least as proven players on the roster right now. Like, you have a lot of skill, and Avery coming back, I think, is going to be a really big potentially if he does, just for kind of you need veteran leadership in that room. Like, you just need it, and if a guy like a Lenzy was gone, and Austin and Avery Davis, like if they roll off the room, then that's an exceptionally young receiver room. So I think it's big to have Lenzy back, and I think it's big to have Avery Davis back potentially.
Yep. And to see him get off press coverage, and somebody mentioned that in the chat. No question. That was one of the things that we've been harping on for years when it comes to Coach Alexander. The guys just did not know how to get off press coverage.
Well, not to backtrack too much on Austin, but no. I do have a piece of just kind of an analysis piece that's going to come down on Irish Breakdown sometime soon here, where I just kind of broke down what I see, the good, the troubling, and then kind of like a projection on Kevin Austin. And my biggest thing was, when you're projecting him to play an X receiver at the next level, which body type that's what he is, because he's not a super flexible guy. He's not going to, be an instant separator in and out of breaks. He's a guy that needs to play on the line of scrimmage against press coverage a ton, and it's not good, man. Like, not even just defeating press coverage at the line of scrimmage, but just getting rerouted down the field. Yep. Like, there's just so many things that were like, he's 6'2", 215, so talented, and moments of physicality. Why is it not more imminent in his game that he is able to defeat press coverage, able to beat rerouting from a stem down the field on your sight line, working in the boundary? Like, there's just so many different things that I think technically could have improved in a guy like Austin. And I'm excited to have, a wide receiver coach, because I've heard you and Brian talk about it, many times, where like they just don't practice beating press coverage. I can't fathom that. And I'm excited to see that improve. Like, I mean, like, I was a high school coach for like 7-8 years, just a high school coach here in New Jersey. And it's just like, that's something you do every single day, like, I don't understand why that's out of sight, out of mind.
You work your hands, you do all, I mean, that's wide receiver coaching 101. I mean, it just is. Like, I just want to send over my resume, coach wide receivers for a long time. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm glad they made the decision that they did again. And I'll preface it with, Dell's a great guy, great human. I talked to him many, many times outside of the football field and whatnot. And we will never call for a coach to be fired. Okay. We will say when he's not doing a good job. Okay. And you can, take out of that whatever it is that you want. But I'm glad that the decision was made from a development standpoint for these wide receivers, because this is going to be a young room. There is no place to go but up for Braden Lenzy from a technical standpoint. So it's going to be clear and obvious what a new wide receiver coach will mean to this room. We're going to see it, and we're going to see it very, very quickly, I think, depending on who they bring in. And if they bring in anybody with any kind of technical chops, I think we're going to see it in the spring, frankly. And so I'm excited about it. And I think it's fun. And there's an article over at irishbreakdown.com that Brian wrote, and I believe it was published today before he got on the plane, that it was, Marcus Freeman era starts now as far as the hires that he has to make here moving forward. I mean, if he makes good, solid hires now, that's only going to pay dividends down the road. If he botches it, that's going to be tough, right? And you're going to be starting behind the starting line, right? So these hires are really, really important. And I would encourage everyone to go over to irishbreakdown.com and check out Brian's article. Definitely.